Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, "Inna arsalnaka shahidan wa mubashiran wa nadhira wa da'iyan ila Allah bi'idhnihi wa sirajan munira." That we have sent you a messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as a witness, as a giver of glad tidings, as a warner and a caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, da'iyan ila Allah bi'idhnihi, a caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His permission, and an illuminating lamp. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the community of the Muslims, and He says, "Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas ta'muruna bil-ma'ruf wa tanhawna 'anil munkar." That you're the greatest of communities brought forth for the guidance of humanity, that you enjoin good and you forbid evil. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this a characteristic of the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that wherever they go, that they try and encourage first and foremost themselves to be shining examples of goodness, and then they encourage others as well. That human beings sometimes fall into ignorance, they fall into ghafla, they fall into the trap of following their lower desires, and they partake in actions or they do things which are detrimental to themselves and detrimental to the community around them and to the other human beings around them. The responsibility of the Muslim is not to sit back and remain silent. The Prophet ﷺ says to the Ummah, addressing us directly, that if you see something wrong, then try and change it with your hand. That's step number one. If you cannot, then speak out against it and try and change it by your words. And if not, then hate it in your heart, and this is the lowest level of Iman. It's the lowest level of Iman. And so the Prophet ﷺ wants from us that we are an active Ummah. We're an Ummah that carries the message of Islam through our actions and the way that we behave around others. Some principles in this, first and foremost, that number one, that in order to be a person who calls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the scholars say is 80% of a spiritual call and 20% of an outer call. In other words, what calls most to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and guides most to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the inner state of the caller. It's not about what they're actually saying. That if the state of the person calling towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala itself is corrupt, itself is not connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it cannot, the one that is disconnected cannot connect others. The one who is disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can they connect? This is the position of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that he connects the creation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he draws the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards the creation. He's connected on both sides. First and foremost, unbreakable connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then secondly, he relates to people. He's able to deal with their issues. The Prophet ﷺ doesn't judge them. The Prophet ﷺ doesn't look down upon them. The Prophet ﷺ makes ease for them. There's a famous narration about Ramadan. One of the Sahaba comes to the Prophet ﷺ and he says, "Ya Rasulullah, I've destroyed myself. I've had intimacy with my wife whilst I was in a state of fasting." The Prophet ﷺ says, "If you're able to free a slave, free a slave." He says, "Ya Rasulullah, I'm not able to do so." He says, "Then fast 60 fasts." He says to the Prophet ﷺ, "Ya Rasulullah, I didn't manage these that are compulsory upon me. I won't be able to do 60. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Feed 60 people." He says, "Ya Rasulullah, I don't have that by which I can feed 60 people." Look at the excuses. The Prophet ﷺ was giving him chance after chance after chance. Just at that moment, somebody brings a whole basket full of dates. The Prophet ﷺ says to him, "Take these dates and feed them to the poor of Medina." He says, "Ya Rasulullah, by Allah, there is no household poorer than my household itself." No. The Prophet ﷺ says to him, "Take these dates and feed them to you, eat them yourselves and feed them to your family, and that's your kafara."
Subhanallah.
The small print at the end is that the Prophet ﷺ said, "This ruling is for you only." But you see how the Prophet ﷺ made things easy for people. The Prophet ﷺ dealt with the reality of people. He didn't make things harsh or difficult for them. And so what we have to do, especially in the West, some of our scholars who've come here from the Arab world, they're perplexed. They say some of you have lived 20, 30, 40, 50 years surrounded by non-Muslims. They're your neighbors. You deal with them in the shops and you go to work with them. And you haven't been able to guide one person to Islam. They're shocked. They're perplexed. How can it be not even one person through seeing you through your entire lifetime? You spend your whole lifetime amongst them, and your character and your display of Islam hasn't been able to guide even one non-Muslim towards Islam. It baffles them. It can't be. the key thing is sincerity. Yeah, that literally, that if you know of somebody, you make dua for them in the middle of the night. That you're weeping at tahajjud and you're in sajda making dua for them. Because the dua has a powerful impact upon the hearts of those who they are directed towards. You make dua for people, it can transform. Look, the Prophet ﷺ makes dua for people, changes the hearts of some of the harshest of the kuffar, and he turns them into Muslims. It's the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. And so wherever we go, and it doesn't have to be overtly. We're not saying go out to people, grab John and grab Sarah and say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. But it's through actions, it's through behavior, it's through inner state. When you're with these people, you are thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're literally thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala internally. That has an outer impact. And the scholars say that when you are sincerely giving da'wah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and calling them to Allah, if it doesn't impact that person, it will impact somebody connected to that person. There's no doubt, they say it's impossible. How can it be that the light of Islam and the nur of guidance does not dispel the darkness of misguidance? It merely takes one candle to light an entire room. And likewise, the nur of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the salawat of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when it is directed towards darkness, it dispels it. And so every single person should make a sincere effort and a sincere dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that through them Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows them to guide somebody to Islam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says to Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem, that if Allah through you guides even one person, it's greater than a great number of red camels. Red camels in those days were considered the most expensive. That was the commodity of the time, livestock. Liken it in this day and age to Ferraris. If somebody said to you, for one person to be guided is greater than a fleet of Ferraris, what would people do if they could earn a Ferrari or win a Ferrari or do something for a Ferrari? How much effort would they put in?